Hello and welcome to a very special show with a very special guest. We're joined today by the co-chairman and co-founder of Infosys Technologies, but today better introduce Nandan Nilekani as the author of Imagining India, a just released book that really has a unique problem-solving perspective to the crises of 21st century India, or the challenges of 21st century India. Nandan Nilekani, congratulations on the book first.
Thank you, Rajdeep, and thank you for having me here.
The big question, and I know you've been asked this in various interviews, why does someone who's an infotech entrepreneur decide to turn suddenly part sociologist, part historian, part economist, part policy wonk? What did it for this book?
No, I wanted to get to the root of what makes India tick. And I realized that if you take a very narrow view of it, you can't really explain it. So I had to delve into all these various things and had to sort of tie up all these threads to get that holistic picture of India.
It's interesting because your book in a sense is what? Post-reform India, really. Post-91 India. A fellow Bangalorean and your friend Ram Gua wrote about India after Gandhi.
You can think of that. You read that for the history and then you read this for...
Yeah, so something about Bangaloreans in the air that makes you look...
far away from the action so we can get a perspective.
Yeah, in a sense it is about that kind of perspective, slightly distant, but there will be those... your book, in a sense, is about two kinds of ideas which you talk about. You talk about the vertical ideas and the horizontal ideas. Interesting. The vertical ideas being ideas that divide us, caste, region, religion, and the horizontal ideas, environment, education, technology, health, that unite us. And you believe that the vertical ideas will become less and less important.
No, I don't think so. I think vertical ideas is the basis of a lot of our debate today. And understandably, because it makes sense for those who want to succeed in a political sense to identify a group of people who feel that they have been treated unfairly and be the voice for that. That's perfectly valid thing. But having said that, at the end of the day, it's these horizontal ideas that move the country forward.
But in a sense, what you're hoping for, in a sense, is that the vertical ideas become less and less of the central focus of a country. That India thinks much more about education, technology, health, environment as the challenges of the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, it is an optimistic book because I'm trying to say that while these vertical ideas will divide us, it's ultimately these horizontal aspirations of a billion people which will drive change. And I've given many examples of how the horizontal idea has overcome a vertical divide.
Sure, but my worry, as you said, it's optimistic. And in democratic politics, we've seen that the vertical ideas often triumph. We've seen it in Mumbai, in a sense, the North Indian Maharashtrian clash recently. We've seen it in the manner in which terror also has a religious dimension. So I just wonder whether, in a sense, democratic politics will prevent your horizontal ideas from being translated to action.
No, that's why I call this as a safety net of ideas, because if the politics of the situation don't allow these things, then hopefully enough people adopting these ideas as a frame of reference will sort of act as a safety net against really bad decisions. And on the other hand, if there's a very good leadership that takes these ideas and runs with the ball, then you have a very accelerated way of looking at the future. So either way, it's reduce the risk downside and increase the upside.
Sure, but Nandan, when you look at, for example, in your book, the ideas which you say are being battled about, higher education, for example, labor laws, for example. Now, as we've seen, these are also politically contentious. Difficult to build a consensus, perhaps,
I think they're
in a democratic
because
system.
They're being positioned on the wrong frame. I think if we position them as issues to improve access, then it becomes very, very fair. Because ultimately this book is about improving access. More people should have more access to more education, more jobs, more infrastructure, more markets, and so on and so forth. And improving and reforming higher education and labor is really giving more access to more people. That's very much a politically acceptable point.
No, that may be acceptable, but we've seen in higher education the entire debate, for example, over reservation quotas. We've seen it in labor laws over how much can you reform labor laws. I just wonder whether it might be easier to work out your ideas in a system that was perhaps less democratic, ironically.
No, in fact, the book is a strong votary of democracy. And I point out how, in many situations, the fact that English survived in India is because of democracy. It's because of the 1965, the South Indians, especially the Tamilians reacted, and that's how English survived, and we are lucky because of that. Similarly, the fact that we don't have a steep decline in population like the Chinese, but have a more gradual population demographic dividend is because of democracy and the failure of the Nasbandi movement in the emergency. So actually, democracy has stepped in many times to drive this. So I accept this book is for a this is not a book for a non-democratic framework.